Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. In Bucha, Ukraine, investigators scrutinize over the widespread killings of civilians. Plus, today marks the 4th anniversary of the Humboldt bus crash. We hear from Logan Boulay's family. And a federal MP vying for the top job of Canada's Conservative Party leader makes a stop in Lethbridge.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. Ukrainians are collecting bodies and evidence of atrocities on the ruined outskirts of Kyiv and stepping up calls for civilians to evacuate towns near the front lines. President Vladimir Zelensky says the Ukrainian army is holding Russian forces back and will do everything to win. In the streets of Bucha, investigators are trying to document what appears to be widespread killings of civilians, including some apparently shot at close range and others with their hands bound or their flesh burned. At a local cemetery, workers are loading more than 60 bodies apparently collected over the past day into a grocery shipping truck for transport to a facility for further investigation. Meanwhile, the U.S. Department of Justice is working with European allies and prosecutors in Ukraine to investigate potential war crimes after Russia's invasion. Attorney General Merrick Garland says U.S. prosecutors across the world are working to collect evidence.
Today, we are assisting international efforts to identify and hold accountable those responsible for atrocities in Ukraine, and we will continue to do so.
Christina Nent is a French national and independent journalist who's been living in the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine, covering the civil conflict in the area for the last 6 years, including this more recent conflict. She says Westerners aren't necessarily getting the whole picture from national and international news outlets, and that some of the images of the atrocities are actually being carried out by the SBU, which is the law enforcement authority of the Ukrainian government.
I think there's a lot of things which will be discovered after the war, because I've heard about mass graves in Mariupol and in Kramatorsk, where there was also a secret prison from the SBU. So I think we will discover a lot of horrors after the war. So there will be a lot of information to share, to show people the truth about what really happened here during 8 years. I mean, this war didn't start yesterday. It started 8 years ago.
You can catch the full interview with Christina Nent coming up following business news. Ontario is offering health coverage, emergency housing, and trauma counseling to Ukrainian refugees arriving in the province. Premier Doug Ford says his government is also looking at ways to connect newcomers with jobs through a new dedicated hotline and email address.
Over the past several weeks, the world has watched in horror as the innocent people of Ukraine have been under attack by the full force of the Russian army. And while we admire the spirit of Ukrainians and the incredible defense they're mounting, we also know that a humanitarian disaster is underway. That's why our government and our federal partners are moving with no delay to get Ukrainian families out of danger zones and into Ontario through an emergency travel authorization. The people of Ukraine will always be welcome here, especially at a time when our government is facing historic labor shortages. Ukrainian applicants to Ontario's immigration nominee program are now receiving priority processing.
Ontario is expecting about 40,000 Ukrainians, but Ford says many people with family in the province have already arrived and are staying with relatives. Well, it's been exactly 4 years since 16 people were tragically killed and 13 others were injured in the Humboldt Broncos junior hockey bus crash. One of the victims was Lethbridge's Logan Boulay, a young hockey player who made the brave decision to donate his organs prior to his death. As BCN's Angela Stewart explains, the Boulays say the pain and grief of losing their son hasn't gotten any easier.
Sometimes you don't want it to be that far. You don't want it to be that long that it's been since Logan's not been here.
It's a day that Toby and Bernadine Boulay will remember forever. April 6th, 2018, the day they would learn the news that their son Logan, along with his teammates and members of the Humboldt Broncos hockey team, were involved in a horrific bus crash.
It is 4 years, and here we are. So not where we thought we would be, but...
Logan was one of 16 people killed in the crash, sustaining a traumatic brain and spinal cord injury. But a decision he made before his death would change everything for the Boulays.
We say very clearly that Logan was able to make 6 lives fuller. So Logan was able to donate his heart, both lungs, both kidneys, liver, and his corneas.
His decision to become an organ donor spurred a national movement, which would later be known as the Logan Boulay effect, something the family never expected to see happen.
We're not scared of being out there, obviously. Our careers took us there, but at the same time, sometimes you just want to have peace. But at this time of the year, that's not going to happen, so we're okay with what we're doing.
I talk to Logan every day. We visit him.
Toby and Bernadine say the hardest thing about losing their son are the small things.
You don't expect to be driving down the road and like, oh, that makes you think of Logan and he's not going to be here anymore. Or, gee, Logan would have really liked that. Or, remember when we did that as a family?
But it's Logan's voice and presence they miss the most.
Talking to him.
Yeah.
And getting answers.
Yeah. But just to actually hear him laugh, to giggle.
Every year since the crash around this time, the Boulays say it's the Broncos that come first.
It's about the Bronco tragedy and the Logan Boulay effect. It's never been about Logan. And so April 6th comes before April 7th, and the families need to deal with that.
The family says they will continue to spread awareness among organ donation, but it's their memories of Logan that will be cherished forever. For Bridge City News, I'm Angela Stewart.
Thanks so much, Angela. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canadians came together 4 years ago following that bus crash in Saskatchewan. He says, in the face of the immense grief and tragedy, the Humboldt community has shown the world what it truly means to be Canadian and that it is forever Humboldt strong. Trudeau points out that changes were made after the crash, with seat belts now mandatory on all new motor coaches in Canada and the establishment of a national standard for entry-level training for truck drivers. Dr. Leslyn Lewis is one of at least 11 people vying to replace former Conservative Party leader Erin O'Toole. The Haldimand Norfolk MP was the first leadership candidate to get onto the ballot, just ahead of frontrunner Pierre Poilievre. Lewis made a stop in Lethbridge on Tuesday evening, and BCN's Naveen Day was there and filed this report.
It was close to a full house at Third Day Church in Lethbridge as Dr. Leslyn Lewis came to share her vision for the future of the Conservative Party. Following her 12-minute speech, Lewis stayed for an additional 2 hours to answer questions and hear concerns from the community. One attendee said she was frustrated that she cannot travel and visit family in other countries because of current health measures that are in place.
What's your plan of action for removing those in our country?
We need health policies that are based on health policies, not on political policies. We don't need political science, we need real science. And so we need our government to implement policies that are not just based on punishing people, that are really meant to keep us safe.
Attendees, young and old, came to ask Lewis questions. One young adult was concerned about the affordability of buying a home.
What are some of the policies you would enact to deal with the housing crisis in this country that makes many young people, such as myself, very nervous when we eventually want to own a home or a piece of property?
When the average home in this country is $1 million, it seems just so insurmountable. And many young people cannot conceive of how they're going to save for that. And so we do need some policies to be put in place. One, we need to build more homes. We need to incentivize builders to build these homes. We need to create incentives in the marketplace so that we could have more supply out there. And then we also need to create opportunities for young people to get there. Many of them have student loans. We need to extend the time for them to pay off their student loans without charging that additional interest on it.
Conservative candidates have until April 19th to enter the race and until April 29th to submit their nomination papers 500 signatures from members of the party, as well as a registration fee and compliance deposit totaling $300,000. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
Thank you, Naveen. A Canadian infantryman is walking across Canada with the intent to reach Ottawa and speak with Canada's federal leaders about the country's COVID-19 mandates. James Top passed through Lethbridge over the weekend, and BCN's Michael Clausen met up with Top and his crew just east of Bow Island.
This is an act that I'm doing to restore unity to this country. I'm voicing my objections to the reasons why I was placed or denied my employment and income. I'm objecting to the way I'm being released from the military. I'm not a blind order follower. I have the right, even though I wear a uniform, to ask questions and voice my concerns. I'm speaking on behalf of those government personnel and other personnel in the public sector or the private sector who have lost employment or have had, suffered because of these mandates. And then I've also taken it upon myself to speak on behalf of government workers, specifically those that were kind of cornered. They had no other choice but to accept this procedure because they would have lost income.
Top says he will complete a minimum of 41 kilometers today and hopes to meet with Medicine Hat Cardston Warner MP Glenn Motz while in Medicine Hat. The 105th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge is coming up on April 9th. The Royal Canadian Legion Lethbridge branch will hold a ceremony at our city's cenotaph by City Hall to honor those who gave their lives. As video journalist Micah Quinn explains, staff from the Legion say Vimy Ridge marked the turning point for the Canadian Army in World War I.
This is an opportunity for the post-COVID to get out and still commemorate the service and sacrifice that was done in recognizing the Battle of Vimy Ridge and how important it is to Canadians to understand their military fabric that helped to build the nation today.
If you take a look back on defining victories for Canada, the Battle of Vimy Ridge in 1917 stands out. According to the Canadian War Museum, more than 10,000 troops were killed or injured during the three-day battle. Glenn Miller, the co-chair of public relations for the Lethbridge Legion, says the battle was important because the Canadians made use of a tactic called the creeping barrage.
And so even before our own infantry got out of the trenches, a well-thought-out plan was developed through the artillery, and not just across the other trenches, but throughout the battlefield space and trying to eliminate the German artillery.
A Vimy Ridge display is now available for the public to view at the Lethbridge Legion, and it shares a special connection with youth from our city.
I was involved with a number of schools that went over for the 90th, 95th, 97th, the 100th anniversaries, and on that display you'll find some of that youth and their connections with the battles today and how they remember it and are engaged in still remembering it today and in the future.
Veterans can contact the Lethbridge Legion branch before noon on April 8th to pre-register for a free meal and camaraderie after the Vimy Ridge ceremony at the cenotaph. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Thank you, Micah. Well, good news for veterans in our city. At City Council on Tuesday, a vote was carried unanimously to approve the Royal Canadian Legion branch in Lethbridge to install banners on street lights in our city come November. A sizable chunk of change will be used to fund the project.
$20,500 for this year will come from the council's contingency, and we look forward to a budget initiative in the fall. So I wholeheartedly endorse the project.
This has been looked into, and we had the opportunity of taking our previous city manager, a veteran, back to further discuss this, and I can't thank you gentlemen enough for bringing this forward and your group. It's a fantastic thing to have within our community, so thank you very much for that, and I definitely will support this.
There will be 30 banners installed on light poles by First Avenue South, 18 at the Lethbridge Airport, and 14 in front of City Hall, with 12 poles, including 2 banners on them. What you're seeing here is a virtual reality application designed to help caregivers practice and increase confidence in working with clients with dementia. This is one of many VR applications designed at Lethbridge College. The college recently received $900,000 in new federal funding to level up its virtual and augmented reality research. The 2-year grant enables the college's Spatial Technologies Applied Research and Training Center to hire new staff and increase its industry-driven research capacity.
We are really excited to be able to hire a machine learning VR/AR researcher, as well as a full-time intern of one of our VR/AR grads in the program to work on these projects with us. The reason why Lethbridge College was selected for this grant, and one of the top amounts awarded, I should say, is because we've demonstrated for the last 3 or 4 years our expertise and leadership in the areas of virtual and augmented reality in Alberta and the world in reality there.
He's been a fixture in the dugout for the Lethbridge American Legion Elks baseball team for over 3 decades. Scott Owakawa is ready for the baseball season. As Nathan Ryder reports, Owakawa has touched so many in the Lethbridge baseball community.
If you told Scott Owakawa that he would still be coaching today back when he started with the Lethbridge American Legion program in 1988, he would not believe you. Owakawa started with coaching the Single-A minors before taking over as head coach of the Double-A Elks in 1995. In his career, Owakawa has led the Elks to 2 state championships in 1999 and 2004. But he says on-field success isn't the only part of coaching.
You know, I mean, yeah, there is the state titles and the success on the field, but when you see those players get better, find success, become better people, and better players, then, you know, I think that's where the reward is.
Owakawa is one of the longest tenured coaches in the state of Montana, which Lethbridge competes in. He has been named Coach of the Year in 1995, 1999, and 2004. Owakawa was also recognized for his years of contribution to Legion Baseball by the Alberta Amateur Baseball Council. Alumni say he is very well respected and loves the game.
He didn't really have to be, you know, too much of a dictator or too much of a player's coach. He had that medium ground where, you know, he was able to goof around with the players, but also when it was game time, he was serious.
I would say that Coach, what he brought to the table best was a love for baseball. He was really, like, he was always the most excited guy at the baseball field, and I think that really came through in the way that his teams played and stuff like that. You couldn't find a happier guy than Coach O at a baseball tournament about to head to the field. It's just, you couldn't find someone if you wanted to. And that's what I most appreciated about Coach O, is that he really loved baseball and he made it obvious.
For Bridge City News, I'm Nathan Ryder.
Thanks so much, Nathan. And it looks like we could be headed for some great baseball weather. We had a decent day weather-wise in Lethbridge today with temperatures hovering around seasonal. However, that mercury is about to rise even further, all the way to double digits this week. I'll have all those details coming up right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Partly cloudy skies this evening in Lethbridge, clearing up overnight. A little bit windy, though, as well. We're expecting some winds from the northwest at 20, gusting to 40 kilometers per hour overnight. Overnight low going to be in the minuses there, -6. Now expect the wind chill in the morning to feel chilly as well. We're going to be expecting wind chills feeling like -10 in the morning, and then expecting some winds from the south tomorrow, 20, gusting to 40K. But look at that temperature. That wind chill is not going to last for long because it's going to get up to 15 degrees on Thursday. Lots of sunshine. 20 on Friday with partly cloudy skies. Saturday's earlier forecast was predicting rain. That's clearing up now. We're actually looking more into Sunday evening, possibility of some flurries. High Sunday 4 degrees, 0 on Monday. Monday we could actually see a 60% chance of flurries now, and Tuesday as well with a high of 1 degree. So we're going from 20 all the way down to 0 and 1. What is going on? That is springtime for you in southern Alberta. What can we say? Average high for this time of year, average high, 11 degrees, average low -3. 22 degrees was our high temperature. That's where we were at back in 1977 for the highest temperature on record for this day. Chilliest, though, was in 1975, and it was -18. 6:58 is when the sun rose this morning. Our sun set this evening after 8 o'clock this evening. So 8:10 p.m. is when that sun is rising. Loving these longer days. Over on the west coast tomorrow, looking at a high of 13 degrees, partly cloudy skies, a bit windy in the Juan de Fuca Straits. 16 degrees the high in Vancouver, also partly cloudy skies there. 10 in Edmonton with beautiful sunny skies. Sunshine expected expected tomorrow in Calgary with a high of 14, only about 15 km/h wind gusts. A little bit more windy in Edmonton, actually, tomorrow, 20 to 40 k winds there. Saskatoon's high 8 degrees tomorrow, partly cloudy skies. Sunshine tomorrow in Regina, 7 degrees the high there. Looking at 50 k winds in Regina, 60 k winds in Winnipeg. Winnipeg, a high of 3 degrees. Expecting some snow in the morning, should clear up in the afternoon though. Lots of rain tomorrow in Toronto, 13 the high there. 10 to 20 millimeters of rain tomorrow in Ottawa, high of 7 degrees. Same forecast for Montreal tomorrow, 7 degrees and 10 to 20 millimeters of rain. Over in the East Coast, Fredericton, beautiful sunny day. Same with Halifax. Both of those temperatures for those cities, 10 degrees. Lots of sunshine, sunny skies in Charlottetown tomorrow, 5 degrees the high. St. John's looking at rain, possibility of even some snow, 2 to 4 centimeters tomorrow, 2 degrees the high there. So there you have it. That is your forecast. Scotia Bank President Brian Porter is calling a tax hike that's widely expected in tomorrow's budget a knee-jerk reaction that sends the wrong message to the global investment community. The Liberals made a campaign promise to impose a higher corporate tax rate on the big banks and insurance companies on earnings over $1 billion, estimating it would bring in about $1.2 billion a year. Some economists argue the policy won't lower bank profits since they'll just pass the extra cost on to customers and workers. Former U.S. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster says President Joe Biden's decision to cancel the Keystone XL pipeline expansion project is proving a costly one in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Republicans at a congressional hearing on Capitol Hill are using that decision to blame Biden for soaring gasoline prices. McMaster told the House Energy Committee the project would have provided a low-impact way of boosting oil and gas imports from Canada. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 142 points to 21,788. The Dow was down 144 points to 34,496. The S&P 500 was down 43 points to 4481, and the Nasdaq was down 315 points to 13,888. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 573 to 96.23 US per barrel. Natural gas was even at 6.03 US. Gold was up 9 cents to 1925.44 US an ounce, and silver was down slightly to 24.45 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at 13.60 per bushel. Barley is at 9.69. Canola 25.26, and corn is at 11.89 per bushel. Live cattle were up 90 cents to 137.70. Feeder cattle were up 98 cents to 157.10. Lean hogs were up $1.08 to 98.75. And the Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours at 79.74 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, today marks the 4-year anniversary of the tragic junior hockey team bus crash in Saskatchewan that claimed the lives of 16 people and injured 13 others, including Lethbridge's Logan Boulay. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says that changes were made after the crash, with seat belts now mandatory on all new motor coaches in Canada, and the establishment of a national standard for entry-level training for truck drivers. Up next, a French independent journalist covering the war in Ukraine recounts some of what she's been experiencing and says not everything is as it appears to be. That interview is coming up right after the break. Don't go away.